Shabbat Shalom! Last week we saw that Moshe was on his way back to Egypt. Adonai is going to save his people. How does he do it? He sends plagues. 10 plagues. Do you remember what they are? Blood. All the water in Egypt turned to blood. Frogs. Frogs jumped all over everyone and everything. Gnats. The dust from the earth became gnats. And now we get to the 6th aliyah, the 4th plague. This is a plague of arov? What is arov? Depending on which Bible translation you use, it might say that this is a plague of flies or biting insects like mosquitoes or a mixture of wild animals. In Hebrew, arov is ayin resh bet. It's the same root as Arab, but I don't think this is a swarm of Arabians. It's also the same root as Erev, evening. Evening is a mixture of day and night, so that's why this root carries the sense of mixing. We know that arov is a swarm, but we don't know exactly what is swarming. We do know that the plagues sent from God are a message to the Egyptians. His message reads something like, I am the real God, the only God. Your gods are false gods, and I will squash them. The Egyptians worshipped a lot of gods, and each of God's plagues was an attack on one of the Egyptian gods. For example, the Nile River was worshipped as a god, so the real God turned the water of the Nile into blood so that no one could drink it or use it. Many of the Egyptian gods are depicted as part human and part animal or insect. Could the arov be an attack on one of these? Perhaps on Khepri, the scarab-head beetle guy? Perhaps. We don't know for sure, but what we do know is that in this plague and in the plagues to come, God makes a distinction between his people and the Egyptians. Those who follow Adonai do not suffer the plagues. He protects them, and his protection is eternal. Matthew 25:31-46 tells a story about that. Now when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another, just as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep on his right, but the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? And answering, the king will say to them, Amen, I tell you, whatever you did to one of the least of these my brethren, you did to me. Then he will also say to those on the left, Go away from me, you cursed ones, into the everlasting fire which has been prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they too will answer, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and did not care for you? Then he will answer them, saying, Amen, I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. These shall go off to everlasting punishment, but the righteous into everlasting life. As God makes a distinction between his people and the Egyptians, so the Son of Man, that's Yeshua, makes a distinction between his sheep and the goats. Whoever is following him in action and not just in words gets to be with him forever. Not so the Pharaoh. We also know that every time Pharaoh refused to let the people go, his heart got harder. Eventually, this would lead to the death of his son. Repeatedly rejecting God leads to death. 1 John 5:16 says there is a sin leading to death. And Proverbs 28:14 says, whoever hardens his heart will fall into trouble. To sum up, Adonai is the real God. God will protect you and rescue you if you are following him. And hardness of heart eventually leads to death. So, let's not be like Pharaoh. Let's choose today to follow Adonai and his mighty arm of salvation, Yeshua. Shabbat Shalom.